for our second panelist, why don't you guys share real quick who you are, what you do as a daytime job.
My name is Mert Hales. I'm a financial advisor with Eagle Strategies, and I'm an agent with New York Life Insurance Company. I've been in the business for 10 years.
Hi everyone, I'm Gabby LaPubel. I work as a tax accountant at Ernst & Young. I prepare tax returns and offer tax advisory services for our clients.
My name is Melanie Crawford. I am an accountant. I work for a private company. I am assistant controller and supervise a payroll department with about 4,000 employees.
My name's Daniel Nettles. I have owned and operated my own business for over 7 years now, and I also work at an investment firm.
All right, so first question, what's the best piece of financial advice you've ever been given?
I'll take it. I want to read a passage from Ecclesiastes. My dad, he takes his 30-minute walks every day, and it's a time for him to meditate, but he also has what I call his walking list. And these are verses that he kind of recites out loud. So every time I take a 30-minute walk with him, he recites this, and I think it's got a lot of good financial advice. Ecclesiastes 11:1, ship your grain across the sea. After many days, you may receive a return. Invest in 7 ventures, yes, in 8. You do not know what disaster may come upon the land. And then in verse 6, sow your seed in the morning, and at evening let your hands not be idle, for you do not know which will succeed, whether this or that, or whether both will do equally well. That's really good advice because it hits on a couple of points. One is the what-ifs of life. I deal with the what-ifs of life all the time in the insurance world. Another it hits on is investing in not only 7 things, but 8 things, and that talks about diversification, so it's very important. And the third is, do not let your hands be idle even at night because you don't know what's going to succeed, and that's kind of a sense of urgency that we kind of have to cultivate.
My dad is I describe him as a penny pincher, and so I think what he instilled in me in an early age is just discipline with your money. And you know how like when you're a kid, you ask your dad to buy you something, and you're like, Dad, it's just $1, and he was very much like, but that dollar, it adds up, you know? And so I think like very much for my generation, it's all about like Starbucks and subscriptions, and you could have like 15 subscriptions, and if you get 20 Starbucks in 1 month, you're talking $100, $150 a month, and it really does add up. And so I think it's just about finding those things, taking inventory of all those things, and then finding a way to have discipline with those things. Like you don't need Netflix and Amazon and Hulu and HBO, and I think we all have all these things and think like, oh, it's just $5, but it's really not over time. So I think just like taking those things, taking inventory of them and finding a way to build in discipline in the things that we have, it's very important, and it'll save you money over time.
I guess my piece of advice is like a family advice. My mother told me from a young age that when she first earned her first paycheck from her job, her grandmother told her, for every dollar that you make, you save 10%, you give 10% to God, and the rest of it is to use as you see fit. So she did that all her life. She's tried to instill that in me. She was a very frugal person growing up. That's the way she raised me to be. So it's like watch your money, watch how the what's coming in is more than what's going out. You don't want to spend more than what you earn, and if you do that, follow that advice, you'll be okay.
So something I've learned from my parents through action is just that, you know, to reach out to people. I think, you know, you can't be an expert in everything in life. And, you know, I'm not up here preaching sermons on Sunday, right? I didn't go to seminary. I'm not... I didn't go to med school. You know, if you have a heart attack, don't come to me. I'm not the guy to help you with that, right? So, but there are people who are experts in different areas of life, and it's important to reach out to them and don't try to do everything on your own. So if you're looking at investments, looking at your finances, you're not sure what to do, reach out to somebody, whether it's in your V group. If you don't feel like there's anybody in your V group, talk to the pastors, talk to a leader, find somebody who can help you with that. Your investments, buying a car, buying a house, dealing with medical bills, trying to figure out all these different things in life. It's important to reach out to people to get some help. And I know sometimes it's easier said than done because it often involves swallowing our pride. To kind of let some of those things go and to admit that we're vulnerable and that we can't do it all. But it's important to do that, and it's important to really lean on other people's experiences and to really get help from that.
All right, this is one from Steve that he wanted us to particularly talk about, and we have a few people that handles taxes. So can you give insight on how the new tax plan affects the everyday American? Who would like to take that?
I'll take it. I'm not a CPA, but okay. Yes, you correct. What I see in the investment world when I sit down to meet with clients, and this is how the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. It's a great name. Has a lot of thought went into it. Has affected everyday Americans that I deal with. I deal primarily with people that are saving for retirement. In leading up to this tax cut that we expected to come, one thing that happened was corporate tax rates were lowered. The anticipation would be that those companies would then pull some of their money back into the U.S. and invest it. They would become more profitable, and their stock prices would rise, and that happened. So we've seen a very strong equities market the last couple years. On the individual side, it did go down a little bit, but I'd like to remind people that historically we were in one of the lowest tax periods, and a lot of us in this room are really too young to realize that. Those of us that started working in the last decade or so, but you get that first check and you're like, man, that hurts coming out. It used to be a lot higher. So I would say, and I think that it's set to expire in 2025, the individual. So my point of that is, and this is how I advise people, that can change 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times over the course of your life. So as you're looking towards long-term planning, you got to think that the tax rate in the future is probably not going to be what it is today.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that on average, for the average American, you will see a tax decrease with the new law that's passed. The big key things that have changed for individuals is that your standard deduction has been doubled. So for individuals, I wrote it down because I don't remember all the numbers. For individuals, it's $12,000, and for married filing jointly, it's $24,000. So it's significant increase. There's no more personal exemptions or dependent exemptions, but we do have, you will see if you have a child, any qualifying child, you get $2,000 per child. So you'll get a deduction for them. And then also there's been an increase in, if your child is in daycare and stuff like that, you can get, if you have up to 2 children, ages 13 or younger, you can get $2,100 max. So if you have sitters or your kids go to daycare or even like after school care that you're paying for, those things can be deducted. Some things that I wrote down that are cons, I know in Orleans Parish we have high property taxes, and now that is being capped. So $10,000 is the only thing that you can deduct as an itemized deduction for property taxes, and mortgage interest expense, if your home is over $750,000, it will be capped at that amount. The interest on a $750,000 home is all you can take. So that's something to think about when you're buying homes, I guess. Also, I wrote down, if you are a self-employed or you are a partner in a partnership or an LLC or anything like that, you will want to seek tax advice. There's been a lot of changes. All of our clients are dealing with significant tax implications because of tax change. So if your CPA is maybe older, or you don't know if they're doing like their research, there's big changes that are difficult, they're complex, and you may want to just make sure that your CPA is taking into all the new tax laws. So if you have a more complex business structure or have complex taxes, please seek CPA advice.
I'm going to give you a short and sweet answer because I am not a tax accountant, nor have I ever wanted to be a tax accountant. But the most practical thing is, you probably saw a little bit more in your paycheck when the tax law changed. And when you filed your state income tax, you might have had to pay a little bit more to the Louisiana.
All right. This is the last one, real quick. What's one thing you wish you would have known when you were younger? Financially.
Glad you threw that one in there. I was about to go somewhere with that. No. I think it goes back to that part in Ecclesiastes about, kind of the sense of urgency. I think that I would have maybe started a little bit sooner. So many people are going to say, save like that first paycheck, or if you can start saving, if you can start investing when you're in your 20s. Oh man, I mean, you can. Any of these guys the financial guys in the room can show you charts of what that looks like if a person begins to save in their 20s versus their 30s. That, having said that, it's not too late wherever you are in life. Just get started. Get started.
So something I would tell myself is that is to prepare better. Sometimes you get in a position, your job's good, you have a good paycheck, you're covering your expenses, and things just seem good. And as stable as those things may seem, as stable as your job, the company you're with may seem, that can change. It can change really quickly. And you should, it's fine to enjoy the good times, but you should be prepared for the bad times, because things may not always be the way you expect them to be, and there's no real replacement. If you haven't prepared for that situation when those bad times come, it's going to make the pain so much harder. So definitely don't assume things are always going to be as good as they are right now. Definitely try to prepare better for the future.
Time is money. So the sooner, I'll piggyback on that, the sooner you start, especially for your retirement accounts, the better off you're going to be when you get to that point when you decide you're ready to stop working and moving on to the next phase of life. So in the beginning, when you're first starting working, it's hard. You get that paycheck and you got this amount of money, but you got this much that you have to spend on because you don't have anything. You don't have a house. You don't have a car. You've got to save for all this. But if you just make that discipline to just start putting that away from the beginning and get in the habit of doing it, you won't notice it as much. And so at the end of your work life, when you get there, then you'll reap those benefits from that.
You're too young to answer?
Yeah.
Okay. Can we give these guys a hand to thank them?